Welcome to the Crypto Layer HQ. Today we will be discussing when we could expect to see an alt season. So the first chart we're going over is the market cap of altcoins, excluding Ethereum and stable coins measured against Bitcoin. So we can see in 2021, we had a clear alt season, which we can see here. And in 2017, we also had a clear alt season. When this chart is going up, it means the market cap of altcoins is outperforming the market cap of Bitcoin. So that's essentially what we want to see to consider an alt season. And as we can see, we didn't get that this cycle. A lot of people were expecting we would get an alt season. So trying to time an alt season can be risky, as if you don't end up having one, you just end up underperforming Bitcoin the entire cycle, which happened this time. So there is a lot of risk in trying to time an alt season. Regardless, let's look at when we could expect potentially the next most likely time for an alt season. So we can see after the 2017 alt season, we had a very steep decline in 2018 and 2019, where altcoins got essentially obliterated against Bitcoin in a very fast move. And then it went sideways for about, could say, 90 weeks. And potentially when we first went low enough was in June 2025. So if we want to look from June 2025 and take it 91 or 90 weeks, that would take us to some time in March 2027. Another chart that is useful to look at is Bitcoin dominance. So when Bitcoin dominance crashes, as we can see it did in 2021 and also in 2017. So when those massive Bitcoin dominance crashes happened, we had alt seasons, and we didn't get one now. We just had this small drop here, but that's nowhere near enough to result in an alt season. So you can see in 2018 and 2019, Bitcoin dominance rose a lot faster, and we reached the 60% area a lot faster than this time around. This time it was a lot slower and gradual. Last cycle, once we reached the 60% area, Bitcoin dominance stayed there for also about 90 weeks. Currently, when we first got to 60%, was about in February 2025. And if we go 92 weeks from there, it would take us to November 2026. Another useful chart to look at is ETH Bitcoin. Now, ETH Bitcoin also bled this entire cycle, apart from a short rally we had in mid 2025, and it was quite significant. The rally, ETH did outperform Bitcoin by about 130%, but overall it was better to own Bitcoin, as ETH did mostly bleed to Bitcoin, and you can see it's continuing to bleed. Now, ETH lasted quite a bit of time in this lower region, and if we want to look, ETH lasted about 135 weeks in this area, as we can see here, 135 weeks. And if we want to look, once we got to this area, was about January 2025. And if we want to go 135 weeks, that would take us to August 2027. So that could potentially be when ETH ends up outperforming Bitcoin again. Alts, this could be, March 2027, could also potentially be when alts start to outperform Bitcoin again. And it would also line up with Bitcoin dominance, November 2026. Now, I'm not extremely convinced that we will get an alt season in 2027. I think something else to look at that's very important is if we overlay Bitcoin, we can see that when Bitcoin had a very aggressive parabolic move in the bull market, we got an alt season in 2017, and we can see again in 2021 when we had this very parabolic move, we also got an alt season. But since we didn't get a massive parabolic move and it was more of a slow grind, this cycle we didn't end up getting an alt season. And we are probably in a bear market right now, so it's unlikely we are going to get an alt season while Bitcoin continues to bleed in 2026, which kind of leads you to think, okay, so when is Bitcoin going to have a parabolic move at the earliest and potentially at the latest? So let's say Bitcoin continues to bleed in 2026 and finds a low at the end of 2026 in Q4, and then eventually starts to grind up in 2027, and then maybe in 2028 we start to make new highs and so on. That could potentially be where we end up having an alt season when Bitcoin is performing well. So that would mean sometime in 2028, maybe even as late as 2029. Of course, anything could happen. We could end up having one earlier, but I do think it's very unlikely we will have an alt season while Bitcoin is bleeding. And even once it starts to slowly recover in 2027, unlikely we will also have an alt season. If we end up getting a parabolic move in 2028 or 2029, that's where alts might end up performing well and having an alt season. So there's many ways to look at it, from time-based to when we expect Bitcoin to do well. I think right now, there's no point trying to catch an alt season or try to time it because we need to wait and see what Bitcoin's going to do. And if it continues to bleed into 2026, it's better to just own Bitcoin and not worry about altcoins.